What's up? We should be starting. As you can tell, I'm a loud clicker. That I bet you can hear that. I used to have a mouse that from where I worked at, and I would click like that because I had used the mouse so much that the plastic part where my finger was had worn all the way through. And so I had to click so aggressive so that the part around would actually like get some kinetic energy from the sides of my fingers. So I think I just like that now. If you could hear that, just so much force. Anyways, that's not what we're here for. We are here for by a request. Somebody requested that we do like a analysis and we talk about actually one of my favorite coaches, Andy Dickerson, who was brought in last year to take over offensive line duties. And I figured if we're gonna do that, we might as well do it right now, because we were just having this whole conversation about the Ravens and how to help Geno Smith, and also like what's going on with Kenneth Walker and rotating offensive linemen, and even Pete Carroll's been talking a bit about rotating offensive linemen, and we're going to keep doing it, and even more so, like, you know, defenses are getting a little bit more, you know, lighter, and how are we planning on attacking that? And you see teams are starting to use more fullbacks, and what's going on with like the progression of teams as far as like, what was it? There was like 8 teams this week that were starting rookie quarterbacks or something like that, or like new quarterbacks that hadn't played for their teams. So you need to be able to not just protect your quarterback, be able to have teams that can, oh, we just don't have a quarterback now. So we should probably, you know, have a run game or some type of system that can function without a quarterback who is able to lead our team. So what do we do as far as coaching? We talk a lot about the players and we talk a lot about the schemes, and often what's said is, well, this coach is a genius, or this coach sucks, I hate this coach, or this coach has been a part of this great system. Yeah, he's a part of a great system. But then we'll also say like, well, Bill Belichick is a legend, but Matt Patricia and Josh McDaniel, they suck. So apparently nobody under the Bill Belichick tree is great. But then, you know, nobody under the Pete Carroll tree has been successful except for like, you know, Dan Quinn. But then you look at Gus Bradley, and he'd probably have been successful under different circumstances. And it's a long story that just keeps going and going and going. And so it's not that simple, right? You got to look at, I think, their roots and their philosophies and how they go about doing things. So when you look at, for instance, Josh McDaniels, who just got laid off from the Raiders, and one of the things about the Raiders is they have the Raider way of doing football. Which is, I mean, I'm not a Raider, so I can't even describe it, right? You know what you know, and I have not had Raider fans, but we've had Marshawn Lynch, who was a Raider, and what do we know about Marshawn Lynch? I'm gonna run you over, and over, and over, and over, and over again. Quote, I'm going to run a motherfucking face over. right? He wants to hurt somebody, and he's gonna keep standing. That dude, like, he would get tackled, but he wouldn't really go to the ground. Like, he'd be tackled and on the ground, but he wasn't really on the ground. That's how much of a badass he was. Is he wasn't technically being tackled. And if you did, quote, that dude is a load, said Luke Kuechly. So there was like an attitude, and that when you look at Josh McDaniels, he brought the Patriot way, but you there was stories from players. I don't know if it was Josh McDaniels or if it was one of the other coaches, but they were saying that the Patriot way was only in meetings and on game day, but there were like during walkthroughs and stuff, but like there were certain, like, I don't know, it was like how would I describe it? Because I haven't heard it in a while. It's like believing the company's sales pitch, and then you get your own version of you get your own branch. You're like, hell yeah, I'm gonna run this branch just like I was taught, but I don't really believe in the sales pitch myself. So you go there and you're speaking the sales pitch, but you don't really believe in the sales pitch. And Pete Carroll kind of talked about this when he was switching over from the New England Patriots to the Jets, and went for Bill Belichick. How Kraft wanted him to basically do this sales pitch, and he's like, man, I wanted these guys to eat the right type of food, and Kraft wanted him to eat like tacos and stuff. He's like, I want them to eat like food that was going to be good for them. These are supposed to be high-end athletes. You want them to eat tacos? It's like, he was talking about this on the Richard Sherman interview that he did this year. It's like, if we can't even agree on like what they're supposed to eat, this isn't going to go well. Because he's like, I'm not going to follow the company line. I'm going to speak my mind. And so if you have a coach who's not passionate about a specific way of like going about something, and then you hire this guy and he's like, well, we have the Raider way, and he can't even comprehend what that could possibly even be. There's no way he's going to succeed. There's no way. So if you're going to hire a coach, what coaches underneath are going to be able to teach your players how to comprehend what that is? If you hire somebody to be the Raider way, and then you bring that coach to Seattle, Tom Cable, even though I didn't like the guy, which I'll probably get into later, he was a Raider coach. And he was signed on by Al Davis, I'm pretty sure, who preached. Al Davis was the owner, who was also a GM, and who preached the Raider way with Madden. And his whole thing was, we're going to beat you the fuck up. We're going to leave you black and bruised with your bones broken. You're going to be bleeding at the end of the game. Raider way. And, hardcore. And Pete Carroll's like, I want that. After Alex Gibbs. It's a different story, right? But he still wanted that attitude, right? But Tom Cable brought that attitude, and he wanted it in his offensive linemen with Giacomini and Carpenter and Cable. What's his name? Ifedi. Thank you. And if you were to replace him with offensive line coach that was based out of an air raid system, and had only known air raid systems because the Raider way was actually the pigeon way. You know, it would be a different philosophy. It'd be a different mindset. There's this video that I've seen online. I don't remember anything about it right now, other than we took all these flies and there was a jar, and we did not flies. We took these these gnats, and we put them in a jar, and then they were jumping, and then once they had kids, they also were jumping, and we took the lid off, and we kept them in the jar, and they could only jump to the height of the jar because they forgot how to jump higher than the lid of the jar. And knowledge is powerful because you only know what you know, and you don't remember that you can't jump higher than a certain thing. So if you don't know what the Raider way is, if you don't know how to beat the fuck out of somebody because you've never even seen or been taught or even had that like ingrained into you, then how are you supposed to know how to do it? And those are what coaches are kind of supposed to do, right? Is you got all of these guys from this type of school, from that type of school, from that type of upbringing, from this type of body, from, this dude's atheist, this dude's Buddhist, most likely 90% of the locker room is Christian. How are they all supposed to get together, right, and match and be on the same exact page, especially since that wide receiver is a pacifist? What are we supposed to do to get everyone to be like, we need to see that team, and we need to make them think, I need to go to the ER after this game? How do you get everybody on that concept, that page? Well, it takes coaching, right? So what type of coaches do you want in the locker room to achieve that goal? Or is that even your goal? Some coaches, we want to set up a scenario so we can take very specific shots. We're analytical. Bruce Arians, he wanted to set up an environment. We want to create an environment, and then we want to create 6 shots per game. And if we can hit on those shots, if we can hit on like 4 of them, if we can hit more than 3 of them, we will win the game, is kind of what his logic was. He was the guy who taught Andrew Luck and Carson, who was on the Cardinals on their run towards the end of his career. I can't remember his first name right now. Anyways, and he's got Todd Bowles, who of course right now is coaching the Tampa Bay, so you can see the talent kind of structure. So the different types of coaches you have matter, but this is a Andy Dickerson stream, and all of this, of course, is supposed to relate to the idea that the types of coaches you have connect to the players you have and to the messaging. So I want to know the history of Andy Dickerson to see what is in his brain subconsciously, even, because he can do all this studying, right? Anybody can study tape, but all these millennials, or specifically Gen Z that grew up as little Seahawk fans, Gen Z, they're watching the Legion of Boom. They've never seen football before. This is their first experience with football, was the Legion of Boom, so their expectations will never be met again. They peaked when they were little tweens, right? Poor things, now that you think about it. I'm sorry. But at any rate, they're watching the Legion of Boom. And unfortunately for them, I lose my train of thought quite frequently because I have ADHD. And Oh, they I wish I could rewind time. I wish I could turn back time. I wish I could find a way. Whatever. We're going to Andy Dickerson. So I'm gonna use. If it comes back to me, it's gone. It's gone. We're going to Andy Dickerson. We're going to talk about this man. He has a nice little page on the coach's website, coaches tab on Seahawks.com/team/coaches-roster /Andy Dickerson. Just go to Seahawks.com and hit the coaches tab. So this is going to be my main reference. And then I'm going to use Pro Football Reference for a bunch of other stuff because I don't think the biography gets into the nitty-gritty of what we're looking for. I want to see the behaviors of what's in his brain. I now know what we were talking about with the Gen Z kids. So they're watching the Legion of Boom, which means subconsciously in their brain, they think a defense needs to be hyper physical and booming and smashing into things. Whereas if another team was watching a more finesse defense like the Cardinals, they would think, oh yeah, you need somebody like Buda Baker in the slot, moving around and following somebody around. Where we're in their brain, they're like, no, you need one guy on one side and you need one guy on the other. Ha! See what I did there? I caught up. Anyways, so yeah, Andy Dickerson. I'm a mess. We're going to go back to the start of his football career. There's not a lot of information about it. Andy Dickerson played collegiate football at Tufts from 1999 to 2002. I tried to look up his career stats. There was no record of his stats that I could find. Maybe there is on like College Football Reference, but I'm not gonna look that up right now. In 1999, his first year, they won the first two games and lost a whole bunch, and then won like the second to last. I didn't look at 2000. Or 2001 or 2002 because it just didn't matter that much to me. What mattered most to me is that he performed in shot put, discus, hammer throw, and then he was also a participant in wrestling. So yeah, he was a 3-sport athlete and then did a lot of just track and field, which is great. That's what you need in an offensive line coach. You need somebody who is able to make contact with human beings and know how angles work and how physics work, how to swing your weights around and things like that. That's great for offensive line, and that's exactly what his role is destined to be. So after 2002. This is immediately after college. In 2003, he joined a collegiate coach of some merit from moving from college into the NFL. He began his NFL career with the Washington football team as a training camp intern, so he didn't make it as an NFL player, but he became as an intern in 2003. And guess who that coach was in 2003 for the Washington football team? It was his last year as the coach of the Washington football team. I will give you a second. It was Steve Spurrier, the legendary collegiate coach Steve Spurrier. For those who are unaware. Oh, did I just scroll past something really important? I better not have. Here we go. Steve Spurrier won a lot. Where's his head coaching record? I want his head coaching record. Whatever. He won a lot. I had stats ready to go. He won a lot in college. Yeah, here it is. He won 228 times, 89 losses, and 2 ties. So this is not bad. It's not bad at all. Won a bunch of playoff games. Looks like he won some championships. I'm not a big college fan. He's a champion, right? So then him transitioning to the NFL, it should be the same thing, right? Especially since this is the 2000s, where athletes are different. This guy's been around forever. Surely he is going to succeed. Other collegiate coaches that have tried to transition into the NFL have failed. Well, his first year in the NFL in 2002 did not go well. He won 7 games and he lost 9. Well, in 2003, Andy Dickerson showed up as the intern for the Washington football team to change everything around because the Washington football team desperately needed help. You see, the Washington football team had a very specific type of run style that was brought over from college. Yeah, Steve Spurrier used a vertical running attack instead of a horizontal running attack. Remember how I said the dive play? I was talking about a dive play straight to the A gap or an inside zone to the B gap, or you can do like a 45-degree angle. Well, he likes those outside zone plays where you're running off the tackle to that C gap. He loves those vertical plays. It's not quite a bounce. You need to run a straight vertical to it, but he likes those vertical plays, and he brought that in from college. It causes the whole defense to have to follow. The offensive line also has to follow too, right? Everything just kind of pulls, right? And it gives your offense, specifically your running back, because it adds steps. Remember, I always talk about steps. Let's say it takes 10 steps for your running back to go from the, let's say, the pistol formation. I think that was popular in college at the time. Let's say your running back is in pistol, needs to run off the right tackle. It says it's going to take 10 steps. The linebacker knows it's going to take 10 steps as well. So in order to beat this conflict, I want to run vertical off that, and we're going to slide everybody over. So we're going to go outside zone, and by doing this, by moving everybody, it's going to give my guy an option to do a read, where I can read that C gap, read the B gap, or cut inside with a counter, and probably hit that inside gap if I so choose. And he liked to do things like that, where he could spread everything out. And because when you would do that, if your offensive line even just moves one step, that's one extra step for the running back. That's one extra step for the guy who's reading him. 2 steps, 3 steps. And then that gives the running back a chance to kind of follow the read and then make the decision he needs to make, or even give an offensive lineman an opportunity to get up and make that second level block, which then your running back is like, fuck yeah, I'll just keep going, and then home free to the third level. So you enter the NFL, things are a lot tighter. I mean, you got to play perfect football. In college, you got a lot of guys that don't know how to tackle because they're spending too much time tackling the fact that they can't eat food. Specifically in the 90s, when this guy was probably very productive, you got a lot of players who you're not allowed to have a job. It's probably hard to afford a place to live when you're only really allowed to have food and stuff during the season. So keeping up your weight and stuff is crucial, and it's kind of hard to keep players around if the players that you keep around can't keep the weight on off the season, so you're getting cycled out, and you don't keep good players around during the collegiate off season and in season in like the old, I mean, just in general, because they're treated like crap. So you get to the NFL where only the best of the best, who had the best resources provided to them oftentimes, are in the NFL. And oftentimes even just like if they didn't have the best resources for them, it's because they're freak of natures or they're geniuses. So you get up there and all of your schemes suddenly don't work, and you realize the verticals just aren't the same. And your power runs just aren't the same. And some of the, so it just wasn't going well for poor Steve Spurrier. And I don't exactly know what happened, but I know that he retired early that second season, and Andy Dickerson was not a part of what was going on there. But the reason I bring this up and why I got so long-winded on it is because Steve Spurrier came from a collegiate background, had already established 1 year in the NFL, and then in year 2, Dickerson got to spend some time as an intern in an established 1-year system that was based off of a vertical offensive line system. So his first year in the NFL, his first year introduced to coaching, was a vertical offensive line system. So remember what I mentioned before. This is the Raider way. Well, he was not, if he was brought into the Oakland Raiders or wherever they were at the time, it would have been the Raider way. So he probably would have been introduced to a power system. But no, he was introduced to a vertical system. So we need to keep note of this as we move forward, and as we remember the way that our running backs currently run, and maybe we should consider this with the way that John Snyder has tried to draft running backs in the past. Running backs specifically like Christine Michael. And it'll become more apparent as we move forward. All right, so I can close. I'm gonna keep that open. Actually, I'm gonna learn. Oh, interesting. I forgot I had this. Quote. This is about Spurrier. From GatorCountry.com. Quote, Spurrier's pass attack revolutionized offense in the SEC by using vertical, not horizontal space. Even in 2001, when he was mostly putting Rex Grossman in the shotgun and going 4 and 5 wide regularly, throwing the ball down the field was the goal. Spurrier's run attack was about as non-spread as it gets. So it was vertical and passing, but the run attack was not as spread as it gets. Oh. So that does actually conflict with some of the things I just said. Keep that in note. So he could be doing that outside handoff stuff to set up the vertical passing. But the run attack was condensed. I wonder if that means tight ends and stuff. But if you got 4 or 5 out, Interesting. Pardon me while I dig. Is there quick data on that? Maybe give me a clip. Give me a clip.
Out there, and they knocked it down. And
that bunch formation? Holy shit. I'm going to put this in the link below. Steve Spurrier on Percy Harvin. This bunch formation looks like what Waldron does with our offense. As a split with the tight end to the right. Yeah. And that's how he would get the 5 targets, is he would have them run hooks and stuff from the splits. And from the halfbacks, he would do it out of things like the eye. And he wanted to spread out of the eye formation as much as possible. To open up the run game, I guess. Huh. Anyways, this kind of explains some things. We keep trying to spread the ball around on the outsides. Like a lot. Like we're trying to spread the ball a lot. And then we're trying to run on the outside. But maybe Spurrier came to the same problem in the NFL that Waldron's having right now, if this is interesting. We'll hang on to this thought. Because I don't know. It just, once I started to look at it, I'm like, that kind of feels like Waldron. So that was 2003. We're only at 2003. I'm getting excited, guys. That was just 2003. So 2004. So first of all, he was only an intern. What happened after he was an intern? He spent the season as a graduate assistant on the offensive staff at Tufts University. So he went back to his university. So he was only an intern during training camp. But he did learn the system, and he learned the philosophy, and he learned the why, and then he was around the legend and all of the coaches that were underneath him that he probably brought up from college. And you see what I'm getting at. His first introduction to coaching was from this legendary coach. And you learn your ability to understand how things function and your reason why they function have to come typically from somewhere or before you discover it yourself. And so, it set him on a path, hypothetically. So in 2004, where did he go after Tufts University? I mean, he could have gone somewhere awful. But he went to the 2004 New England Patriots. Yeah, this dude went to the 14-2 New England Patriots, who I believe uh they had like just replaced. Oh no, that's the Jets. Yeah, so he it's written right here actually. What am I doing? He was the operations department. Yeah, he was in the operations department of the New England Patriots. So that was his second introduction into the NFL, was operations. And was that the year they won a Super Bowl? Yep, they won a Super Bowl. So he's a Super Bowl winning operations manager. Andy Dickerson. So he has just as many Super Bowl wins as Pete Carroll. You gotta keep that in mind. Let's see. Looks like he became a coaching member of the Jets in 2006. Yes, here's where it gets good. They were 10-6. He was a defensive quality control, and he was also just a general coaching assistant. And he did that job from the Jets from 2006 to 2008. His coach was Eric Mangini, who, that name is ringing a bell. He coached for 10 years. And his win-loss record was 33-47. Oh wait, no, he coached for 5 years. Yeah. What was his offensive philosophy? Give me something on Eric Mangini. I didn't bother looking up Eric Mangini. I gotta be honest. I didn't feel like it, because he was just kind of there, I think, to stay in the NFL. It was an opportunity, and he took it. But for the purpose of the stream, I probably should have taken this one a little bit more seriously. And he's like a DB coach. Anyways, yeah, so Andy Dickerson, 2006 to 2008, broke into coaching for the first time as a coaching assistant and defensive quality control coach. So spent time on defense, which was interesting, because he had spent time as an offensive staff member in college at Tufts. So he switched over, other than, intern. I don't know what he did in training camp for the football team. But for the Jets, I guess they wanted him on defense. Or I guess they just said, and defense. So maybe he did a little bit of both. Like, look, I'm versatile. So it must have been like a legit, this is your first job in the NFL other than an intern. You're going to do both, and we'll see where you stick. It might be that kind of job. And it just happened to be for this coach, Mangini, and it just didn't work well for Mangini, and here we go. But before that, he had done operations for the Patriots, and that's we'll sit you here and then you can apply type of thing. It's one of the legendary problems about the NFL is you only get hired if somebody knows your name, not necessarily if you're good at the job. So you got to just find any way into the door whatsoever. So you get guys doing things like coaching forever and ever and ever. And then Jeff Saturday ends up being a coach because the owner just happens to know his name but doesn't know any of the coaching staff underneath, whoever he just fired at the time, who's eluding me. This is so, it's just kind of a dog eat dog world. And so he might have been had an opportunity with the Patriots because it was so dark there. He had to then go to, the Jets instead, who are right across the street, who he probably met because he, was doing operations, and then through conversations, because they're a rival and they meet twice a year, was able to say, hey, there's an opportunity over there because their organization sucks and they're going to need somebody. So after 2008, he moved to the Cleveland Browns as an, as an offensive line coach. Hold on, what's going on? I don't like what the Seahawks website did. They listed his history chronologically backwards, but they wrote it, so the way that I am like, if you want to know what he's doing chronologically, it's just kind of hard to read. So what we're doing, in 2008, he was with the Jets, which I guess let's see how the Jets did. In 2006, they ended 10-6 with Eric Mangini, which isn't bad. Except in 2007, they went 4-12. Like I said, it's not a good organization. But in 2008, they went 9-7. 2009, they went 9-7. So pretty stark difference that first year, and then they balanced out to just a 9-7 team. Jets. It's just a underrated reason why the Patriots always went to the playoffs. I'm a little surprised that there was a team even in that Patriots era that made it, other than the Sanchez, that made it to 10 wins. So shout out to Eric Mangini and the Jets. 2006 Jets. 2009 Cleveland Browns. He joins, Andy Dickerson joins the 2009 Cleveland Browns as the defensive quality control, which is what he was doing with the Jets for the last 2 years, from 2006 to 2008. So it makes sense. And it's in the AFC. He immediately switches a year after that to going back to doing offensive line coaching, which he hasn't done since 2003. So it's taken him 6 years to get back to doing what he's loved to do. And if you remember, in 1999 to 2002, he was doing shot put, discus, hammer throw, just track and field. He was doing wrestling. These are all things that offensive linemen do, defensive linemen do. But quite often, these are the things that you want your offensive linemen to be interested in doing, specifically the wrestling. He was doing defensive quality work. He wants to do offensive line work. You could just feel it, right? But what type of offensive line work? Because before this, he had done stuff with Spurrier, and then he spent time with Bill Belichick, and we know what that's like. We're gonna take a thumb and we're gonna shove it in your eyes. And what was that? Was that the Moss era in 2004? Oof. So that was definitely all about the verticals. Oh, he was on the Vikings in 2004. Anyways, I don't know. I wonder what he learned from Belichick. I would have to dig deeper into that. But surely he learned something, because that was Belichick at his peak, not the older. I think I might be out of ideas Belichick that we got today. Which, I mean, there's still like a lot that you can learn from that man, surely, but you don't want to be a mirror image of somebody. You want to pull a bunch of ideas from different people. You want to pull from Spurrier. You want to pull from Mangini. You want to pull from Bill Belichick. You want to pull from Mora, Seahawks fans. You want to pull from Mora, and whether it works or not, you might get Max Unger out of that. Be like, Max Unger's great, Mora. Good job. You did something good. Let's see. After the 2010 season with the Cleveland Browns, which, for all accounts in 2009, they were 5-11. Oh, that's juicy. So in 2006, with the Jets, his coach was Eric Mangini, where he was doing quality control, defensive line quality control, until 2008. And then in 2009, he goes to the Cleveland Browns to do defensive quality control for Eric Mangini. So he followed Eric Mangini. Eric Mangini was like, yo, you're my guy. That's great. Eric Mangini's still the coach in 2010. And then he does the offensive line work. So Eric let him transition to offensive line work. Trans lives matter. Sorry. And then in 2011, he goes back to the Jets as a coaching assistant. This is interesting. Who's the coaching assistant? Who's the Pat Shurmur is the new offensive line coach, the new head coach in 2000. Wait. Not Pat Shurmur, because Eric Mangini got fired after 2010 from the Browns. So that's why he's not with the Browns anymore. He goes to Rex Ryan. He goes to Rex Ryan and the Jets in 2011. This is right, because because Mike Bloomgren of the Jets got a new job. I think he got a job, a collegiate career. Yeah, he got a job at Stanford as an O-line coach. And he was there till like 2017. So Andy Dickerson took over the O-line duties, or the assistant offensive coach duties. Yeah, he took over the. Is that right? Let me double check that. I know a lot's going on. I'm sorry. I'm listing a lot of names. More team info. Oh my God. You know who else was on this 2011 New York Jets team with Rex Ryan and Andy Dickerson? Brian Schottenheimer. Brian Schottenheimer was on this team. It's a small world. Which means that I wonder if Brian Schottenheimer put in a good word for him at some point. Offensive Bill Callahan was also an assistant head coach. My goodness. This team had a lot on it. Oh, yeah, he took over those duties as the assistant offensive coach. Let's see. And then in 2012, here's where we get into territory you should be like super familiar with. He joined the Rams, the St. Louis Rams, in 2012. This guy's been in the NFL a long time. St. Louis Rams. In his first season with the Rams, this is quoting Seahawks.com, Dickerson helped guide an offensive line that allowed just 35 sacks after giving up 55 the previous year. St. Louis' offensive line was forced to deal with its share of adversity as 9 different linemen started at least one game. The unit led the league in sacks allowed after seeing significant action from 5 rookies. Does that sound familiar? Last year we had 5 rookies and all of the sacks that we're berating with and stuff. He's kind of used to this type of chaos. His coach, of course, back then was Jeff Fisher, Brian Schottenheimer, who seemed to come with him from the Jets. The year before, remember 2011, he was with the Jets, and maybe he Brian Schottenheimer being hired from Jeff Fisher was like, hey, I want this young pup, Andy Dickerson, the offensive coach assistant, to come with me. What was his specific role? They don't have it listed on Seahawks.com. Is it still offensive assistant? It must be. Let me double check that. He must be just the straight up offensive line coach in 2012. I don't see anyone else listed. We're going to go with that. In 2012, he was the offensive line coach. Oh, wait. Don't I have the Andy Dickerson? Where is it? Here it is. I pulled it up specifically because I couldn't find it earlier. Personnel changes. Assistant offensive line coach Andy Dickerson. The offensive line coach was Paul Bourdier. Oof. I got it right, though. And yes, the offensive coordinator was Brian Schottenheimer. Wunderbar. So yeah, he has been in the NFC West for a while. This hasn't been a him and Shane Waldron joined at the hip thing. If anything, it's probably been him and Shane Waldron, and he's been around some dogs. Sorry, Shane Waldron, him and Schottenheimer, him and Rex Ryan, him and Mangini. It looks like he was with Mangini for quite a while, like 4 years. Bill Belichick. You got Steve Spurrier, for what that's worth. 2013, it's quoting Seahawks.com, St. Louis averaged 21.8 points per game, the club's highest point total since 2006. The team's offensive line had a great impact on the team's play. Running back Zach Stacy rushed for 973 yards, third most by a rookie in team history. Over the last 11 games, only 6 NFL backs rushed for more yards than Zach Stacy. In the passing game, the Rams allowed 36 sacks in 2014, the 8th lowest total in the NFL. Well, who was their offensive coordinators? Well, in 2012 it was Brian Schottenheimer. In 2013 it was Brian Schottenheimer. In 2014 it was Brian Schottenheimer. And then 2015 it became Rob Boras and Frank, don't know how to pronounce that, Frank Cigarette. In 2015, though, that 2015 year I referenced, with the help of St. Louis offensive lineman Trey Mason, finished second among all rookies and led the Rams with 765 rushing yards. And as a team, the St. Louis averaged 102.2 rushing yards per game, giving them at least 100 yards per game in each of Dickerson's 3 seasons with the Rams. So he's got Stacy and Trey Mason, both rookies, who are, kicking off great. So it's not necessarily the backs that are having individual great seasons. It's the offensive lines that are doing well. I mean, even quoted by Seahawks.com, for the 3rd consecutive year, the Rams boasted one of the NFL's top rookie runners in 2015. The Rams' offensive line blocked for Offensive Rookie of the Year and Rookie Pro Bowler Gurley to rush for 1,106 yards, which placed him 3rd in the NFL in rushing yards. The Rams finished 7th in the NFL in rushing offense and allowed the fewest sacks in the league with 18. So they went from 35 to 36 to 18. I think that was the year that Sam Bradford was finally healthy. And then they went to Case Keenum, a case for Keenum in 26. Let's see, 2017 campaign, Jared Goff. Todd Gurley led the league in total touchdowns with 2019 and 2,093 scrimmage yards. So Andy Dickerson led a running back to 19 touchdowns and 2,093 scrimmage yards, and had offensive player of the year. The offensive line paved the way for the biggest offensive turnarounds in NFL history. Because remember in 2016, the offense ranked 32nd in offense. Because remember what happened with Jared Goff? This was the year that they signed McVay, right? Yeah, 2016 they had John Fassel and Matt Fisher, and then Sean McVay showed up in 2017. Yeah, he has been there for a while. And then it just kept going. 2018, the Rams' offensive line was amongst the best in the league. They had the same starting five for all 16 games. They made it to the Super Bowl that year. And they had the number 2 ranked offense for the second consecutive season. The offensive line ranked top 10 and fewest sacks allowed. Dickerson was, quote, this is quoting, Dickerson was influential in the success of LA's ever-changing offensive line in 2019, which was forced to make adjustments throughout the season due to injury. Despite losing 2 starters, oh my God, just 2, the unit went on to not allow a sack in a franchise-best 6 games. That is impressive. While not allowing the fewest sacks in the league, 22. Is that a Dickerson thing, an offensive line thing, or is that a Sean McVay and Goff thing? Okay, here it is. In 2021, Dickerson helped guide Seattle's running game that finished 3rd in the NFL in rushing yards per attempt with 5 yards, .02 per attempt. The Seahawks ground attack finished strong as Rashad Penny led the NFL with 671 yards rushing since week 14. We do kind of forget that somebody made Rashad Penny look amazing. And it was the blocking. Was that Andy Dickerson? He did kind of like make Gurley and all these other running backs look fucking incredible. Was it Dickerson? This is his 2nd season as the team's offensive line coach. And he's been around some legends, which I just listed. From, Steve Spurrier, Bill Belichick, Mangiani, Rex Ryan, Mangini. Sean McVay, at this point, he was with Jeff Fisher forever, right? So you can't just say it was all vertical and spread. That's all about Fist. He was with there from 2012 to 2016. 2016. And when you look at like a lot of those teams, you got like Chris Johnson on the Jets. Let me this 2004 Patriots. You know how many yards they ran for that year? 2,134. He was just doing operations. But that's like energy. You feel like, how much did they pass for? 3,588. They didn't even break 4,000 yards that year, and they won the Super Bowl. That's energy. This 2011 Jets team, just what 1,692 yards, 14 touchdowns. Couldn't pass the ball. 3,297, 26 touchdowns, right? So you could say, well, they ran the ball a lot compared to it. They ran for 3.8 yards an attempt. They ran the fuck out of the ball. Energy. This Mangini team. What's going on with this Mangini team? 1,646. This team didn't even break 3,000 yards passing. 2,989 yards passing. That's some energy right there. They were averaging 4 yards rushing. That's some energy. They were not passing the ball at all. They were not interested. Let's look at this 2021 Seahawks roster. How much did we run for last year? With this Geno Smith-led passing attack that we desire so heavily. Right, the one that we're like, this is it. This is what we need. Clearly, he passed for like a fuck ton of yards, right? And we didn't really run the ball. We ran for 2,074 yards last year. Well, clearly we passed like way more than we ran last year, so it must be a lot. We passed for 3,432 yards last year. Yeah, we were averaging 5 yards an attempt rushing the ball last year. Which means that every time we ran the ball, we were halfway to a first down. With Andy Dickerson as our offensive line coach. He's a hell of an offensive line coach, if that is the case. With 2 rookie tackles and Lewis and a center that's we don't even have anymore, and a rotating right guard. And then this year, all of our guys are hurt and rotating, and the guys that are coming in look like starter caliber guys. So good that as our starters are coming back, we're like, well, what do we do with our offensive line talent that we've developed? This guy has been around so long, and he's been around really good coaches, and not necessarily good teams, but good systems and good coaches and good philosophies of how to run the ball, right? Not necessarily good teams, right? But good ideas of how to take care of the ball and how to take care of the offensive line. You know, Chris Johnson, was it Chris Johnson on the Jets Pretty sure it was Chris Johnson on the Jets. Or was that the Titans? I gotta look. Damian Tomlinson. I'm tired. Anyways, you pick up lessons along the way. You pick up knowledge along the way. And these you discard, what doesn't work, hopefully. But if you're in systems that don't work the entire time, or you come from people who have been in systems that don't work the entire time, then you don't have anything to teach. If you're an offensive line coach and you've never learned the Raider way, but you try to teach the Raider way, then you have nothing to teach. Because you don't know it. It's not in your head, so don't bother. If you try to teach a vertical offense, but you've never met Steve Spurrier, then don't try. Because you've never felt that energy before and been given the paperwork and been walked through it and been taught how to teach it before. So don't try. And so I can go on a stream and say, hey, I want to have an offensive system that's about striking really hard. But when you look at the type of coaches that our current offensive line coach, Andy Dickerson, has been around, other than maybe Rex Ryan, and I don't know much about Mangini, so that's on me, and I need to look at that more. But you don't really have a lot of smash mouth coaches. You have a lot of either spread or logic based, I want to get to a very specific place on the field coaches. The Bill Belichick and then later McVay. And you do have Jeff Fisher. And Jeff Fisher did have a bit of that smash mouth in him. Absolutely. But that wasn't why he was brought in. He was brought in to serve with Waldron, who was the offensive coordinator for McVay. So if I was to say, I want Geno Smith to play like Lamar Jackson and do all the finesse and stuff, you'd say, well, that's not the type of player that Geno Smith is. And you'd be right. So if I was to then say, well, I need Andy Dickerson to coach like Tom Cable, and you'd say, well, Andy Dickerson isn't Tom Cable, you'd be right. So why should somebody like myself or others ask that Andy Dickerson coach a very specific way that he probably has fundamental beliefs why, oh, well, we shouldn't coach this way, or I don't want to coach this way because I'd rather do it this way. And in his way, I imagine, is I want offensive linemen that are agile and can get to where they need to be and can move around. And because I come from a system like Spurrier and a system like McVay, and that requires motion, and a system like Fisher that had Jared Cook and had Austin in the backfield doing weird things, and I used Zach Stacy in unique ways for screens and stuff like that. I don't want to just smash up down the middle. That's not my style. That's not my thing. And it's because I have all this experience, and I want my offensive line to do what I envision in my head. And if I build my offensive linemen through the draft, because I have input in these drafts, if I build them like to just be brick walls and maulers, then they're not going to be able to physically do what I need them to do during the plays. And when you look at Tom Cable, one of the problems we had with Tom Cable in the ways that he played is the ways that the players he chose is he wanted guys that could just bull and shove, and oftentimes he would ignore the footwork, I believe, because they would put their foot down and they weren't agile enough to keep their feet moving. And I always talk about footwork, right? You got to keep your feet moving. You got to follow in tempo. And especially in a offensive line position, if you stop moving your feet, you can get teetered. And you would see Fetty and company fall on the ground constantly. There's that famous Seahawks picture where Russell has the ball and all offensive linemen are on the ground over here, and then all the defensive linemen are here, and Russell's just right there. It's just a disaster, right? And it's a perfect encapsulation of the Tom Cable era, because he had all these guys that were big and strong and knew how to like push forward, but they didn't know how to use their feet. So like after a couple steps, their feet would stop, and they would just stop moving their feet. And so Andy Dickerson, especially after Solari, after Mike Solari took over for Tom Cable, it was like a breath of fresh air that first preseason game. Their feet, like DJ Fluker and company, they come in and their feet just kept moving after the ball was snapped. Like it was a sight to behold. They knew how to play football, and they just kept moving their feet. And then with Andy Dickerson coming in, people were a little worried, like, he's never done it before. He kind of has. He mostly has. And these guys, their feet do not stop moving from the beginning of the snap to the end of the snap. There's no more teetering. It's wonderful. It's something that it used to be like. It used to be my pet peeve because it's so simple. It's like how can you enter the NFL and not be able to move your feet? It's like how can you be a wide receiver in the NFL and not be able to catch? How can you be an offensive lineman in the NFL and not be able to move your feet? And for some reason, Tom Cable loved those guys. I think he thought that he could teach them how to do it, but it's like a natural trait thing. You can't teach a guy how to catch. It's like it's just a thing, right? You can put them on the jugs machine and all this stuff, but if somebody just can't catch, I'm sorry, dude. Like I can't help you, bro. Why can't you catch? Just do the thing. I'll put you on the jugs machine and like get you out of it, but fuck, dude, just fucking catch the ball. Just move your feet. Why aren't you just moving your feet? We'll deal with you're messing up later, but just at least move your feet. A lot of these guys would just stamp, like Terry Poole. Don't get me started on Terry Poole, man. That guy would just stand there. It was like he would spend so much time thinking. It was ding 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 ding. It's like he was doing a drill while playing the game. And did Tom Cable, what was his whole philosophy? It was, they're not teaching collegiate players how to play offensive line anyways. I'll just get a bunch of guys who've never played football ever and teach them how to play. You've only played defensive linemen or safety or something before? Like you've never seen a football in your life? I'll teach you how. I'll let you have like 3 snaps during preseason and give up on you and move on to the next project. Christian Solari deserved better. He could have been something. That guy had amazing footwork. He had amazing feet. He just needed to be given an opportunity to actually play the game and fail. And Tom Cable didn't give him a chance. And that was a guy who came from the Raider system. Attack. He was actually a head coach. And he got fired for abuse of some kind. I don't remember. Oh, good dude. We were supposed to get Alex Gibbs. Pete Carroll wanted Alex Gibbs. Alex Gibbs was the genius behind the zone blocking scheme that was used by the the Broncos and Terrell Davis. Terrell Davis was, I think he got 2,000 yards. He had a couple really good years, and then he just quit playing. Maybe fell off a cliff. I don't quite remember. But they would create these wide gaps. And then you would hit the gap, get a ton of yards. Before that, it was the classic Raider way, right? We're gonna create a hole, and you're gonna hit the hole, and you're gonna power through it, right? And instead, with the zone blocking scheme, is they would give you options of where you're gonna run. You can either choose A, B, or C. We're gonna create zones for you to choose. And then we're going to create levels and all this fun stuff. It just expanded the concept of how to run the ball. And so Pete Carroll's like, I fucking want that guy. I want that guy to be my assistant head coach / offensive line coach. And he's like, no, but this guy Tom Cable, I guess you could use. And so Pete Carroll got Tom Cable. And I was angry ever since. For various reasons. The dude couldn't coach. Dude could not coach. Oh, you got J.R. Sweezy good. And then people are like, but Justin Britt. The best player on JV that can sometimes be your worst player on varsity is still your worst player on varsity. He was not a good coach. His best players were Jim Mora picks and Max Unger. Russell Okun. Was Tom Cable involved with the Russell Okun pick? I don't remember. So what do I want to see from fans involving Andy Dickerson? I want to see a little more respect for that man with the beautiful afro. I want to see that. He's coached the hell out of these guys. It used to be that our starters looked like backups, and now our backups look like starters. And they may not look like great starters, but they look like they know what they're doing. They don't look like they're completely confused out there. That's a hell of a thing. You see Bradford come out there, you're not worried. It used to be that we'd draft an offensive lineman, and I'm like, well, he's not going to work. I didn't care who it was. I would go and look at the tape, sure. But I just immediately, just upon looking at the tape, be like, this guy is not going to survive camp. We're going to keep him, but he's not going to survive camp. There are going to be reports on camp about Clark and everybody teeing off on him. And it's just going to be a disaster. And then the season's going to start, and it's going to be a disaster all year. Because the guy can't play football, because his footwork sucks, because Tom Cable can't coach footwork. And that stopped mostly when Solari showed up. But when Solari became the coach, I felt like he unfortunately did not benefit from the situation Andy Dickerson's in right now, which is the offensive line cap space is all cleared out. Solari had all this old crap, the Russell Wilson cap and just running back cap and cap space spent on these Luke Jokel contracts and weird ass contracts to try to get just weird offensive linemen in there that just to try to jam in these old veterans or these old project picks in there, and none of it really worked out. So he didn't have the benefit of building an offensive line, and this offensive line has clearly been built from the ground up. We want these types of players. We want players with this type of footwork. We want players with this type of attitude. We want players that do this. We want players that can do pulls and that can get to this part of the level. And we want players that can kick back and can kick back at this level of length and can get low. And it's nice to see, because a lot of times, like if Eddie wasn't agile enough to get low enough, and so would get beat underneath on pass rushers. So it would just get teed off just by virtue of I'm not flexible enough to get to that level pre-snap. So Ziggy Ansah, oh no, coming at me. And so it's nice to see a coach that just has the eye for assessment, for basic, hey, can this guy even play in the NFL? Can he do the basic functions of being an offensive lineman? Let alone, is he Pro Bowl caliber? Is he coachable? Can he be an all-pro? Can he be a starter? Just basic, can he play? That's what we've been dealing with since kind of 2011, is other than like Unger and Okun and Brown, and even when Brown was there, he complained about Tom Cable, which was kind of one of the leading reasons that we got rid of him. Hush hush, Pete Carroll being like, "Oh, really?" Is, hey, we have a bunch of guys here that really couldn't play football, and the ones that could play football, like Posick, Tom Cable would keep on the bench, and then once he was gone, so Solari would start. Their contract was over, and then because their contract was over and we couldn't afford to pay him at the time because we were in a restructure, Posick went to the Browns and he's playing great. Glowinski went to the Colts and he was playing okay, and that's fine, but he wasn't starting for Tom Cable till somebody got hurt. Justin Britt was never good. I'm sorry, guys. Justin Britt was never good. There's a reason why that man played every single position on the field, and it wasn't, quote, versatility. He was Tom Cable's dude. It felt like nepotism. And so you see Andy Dickerson, and he's just, you feel like, especially since after the Damian Lewis pick, once Damian Lewis got picked and I saw the way that dude's footwork, I was like, wait, am I awake? Am I awake? Are the Seahawks drafting offensive linemen that know how to use their feet and can be in position to make blocks and angle themselves and shuffle around and not just get teed off on? And sure, defensive linemen are going to make plays, and I'll have criticisms about Forsyth and things like that, because he has a size disadvantage and inexperience and things like that, and things are going to happen. But for the most part, the players kind of know what they're doing. And for like most of a decade, it felt like they had no idea what they were looking at, and they were in panic mode the entire game. And you can't run an offense. Now, sure, we played the Ravens, and we were getting our asses handed to us, but they're like the 1/2 number defense in football, and they're leading the league in sacks, and our timing was atrocious. And also, as Pete Carroll said, we weren't running the football, which goes against the strength of what we're doing. And that's not Andy Dickerson fault. And when we look at the statistics of what, his offensive lines have accomplished, especially with the Seahawks offensive lines the last 2 years with Walker and Penny, and then what he did with Gurley and Zach Stacy and Akers and the rest of them, what he did with the Jets back in the day. He's always had really good rushing attacks. And not necessarily smash mouth. He's had good vertical rushing attacks. He's had good downhill. He's been all over the place. And so people talk about, well, Waldron is the genius. I mean, he's good at, like, the spread passing, I suppose. But the genius of the Seahawks offense is the engine. And the engine that makes our offense run is Andy Dickerson. This was long. Not as long as I thought. I got that all in there. Like and subscribe. I appreciate all that. I'm going to drink some water. You should drink some water too. I'm going to head out and get ready for this Commanders game later in the week. I don't know what the score was for Monday Night Football, but this stream was surely better than Jets Chargers. I assume Eckler won. Eckler specifically. You all have a good night.